Welcome to Culinary Cooking with Chef DeWatt. I'm Shanel and I own Divine Indulgence Personal Chef Services. So today we are making oven-fried catfish with gluten-free mac and cheese and roasted asparagus. So this recipe actually came from, the idea of this recipe actually came from one of my clients, Miss Gwen Jameer of Naturalicious. One day she called me and she was like, I really want some oven-fried catfish. So I was like, okay, I can make it happen for you. So from there, I I kind of like came up with a couple of recipes, but I made something out of nothing just by getting the ingredients from her pantry, and voila, magic happened. So we are gonna start by making the dredge for our actual catfish. So we have about 1.5 cups of just regular cornmeal, and then I have here 3 fillets of catfish. So to the cornmeal, I am going to add about 1 tablespoon or so of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of paprika, and then 1 tablespoon of onion powder. We want to make sure that this dredge is nicely seasoned because it's going to make our catfish be really, really tasty. And make sure that it's thoroughly mixed. You can also do this in a Ziploc bag or brown paper bag. And then you want to add a little bit of pepper, freshly ground pepper. We are also going to season our catfish fillets as well. So a little bit of salt and pepper on both sides. I'm just gonna put on a glove to flip the catfish so that I'm not touching it with my bare hands. Perfect. And you can also do this with catfish steaks. It will work just as well. So a little bit of salt because we did season the dredge. So from here, we are just going to evenly coat the catfish with the dredge that we just made. And for those of you that don't have a lot of time on your hands, you can easily make this dredge ahead of time and just label and date it, and then just store it in a container with a sealed, and it will last up to a month. As long as you don't cross-contaminate it with the catfish, it should be good. Like if you just made a big batch of this should be good. Nice and light. Make sure it's well coated. So from here, we are going to put it on a lined parchment baking sheets, and it's gonna go in a oven that's 375 degrees that's already been preheated. And if you're making more than 3 servings, you want to make sure that you don't overcrowd the pan because the catfish won't be able to get that nice crunchy texture from the cornmeal. It'll kind of get soggy if you just like layer them on top of each other. So it's very important to make sure that it's evenly spaced out and you're not overcrowding the actual baking pan. So from here, I'm gonna add a little bit of light olive oil, about 1 teaspoon, just a light drizzle, and it's gonna help with developing that crunchy texture for the catfish. And it's gonna go right in the oven. So I wanna put this in the oven for at least 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I check it in like 5 to 10 minute increments. So at the beginning of the show, I put on a pot of boiling water so that it will be nice and at a rapid boil by the time that I got to it. So I want to season it with some salt, and then from here I'm going to add in a box of gluten-free elbow noodles, and this is made out of corn and rice flour. So whenever you're cooking any type of pasta, you want to make sure that your water is boiling. because you want, as soon as you put your pasta in, you want the water to just instantly, we want the pasta to just instantly start cooking. Add about a teaspoon of olive oil to help the noodles not stick to each other. And then I'm just gonna put the lid on it and leave it be. And we wanna cook this until it's about al dente. So from here, I want to start the actual mac and cheese sauce. Now, although the mac and cheese is gluten-free, is not vegan, but because I am using cheddar cheese, regular cheddar cheese and regular Parmesan cheese and butter. But if you wanted to, you could make the macaroni and cheese vegan by using vegan cheese and instead of butter, using oil. 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add this to a medium saucepan, and we want this butter to get nice and melted before we move on to the next. So once the butter is nice and melted, it doesn't take long when it's on high heat. At this point, we do have the heat on high for this sauce pot. So the butter is nice and melted, and we're gonna add 1/3 cup of coconut flour. So traditionally, this is what in French cooking, this is called a bechamel sauce. And right now we're making a roux, but since it's gluten-free mac and cheese, I'm using coconut flour instead of butter. So 1/3 cup of coconut flour. And I don't have a particular reason why I'm using coconut flour. When I first made this mac and cheese for Gwen, that's all she had in her pantry. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna make it work. So I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of olive oil. Well, 1/4 cup of olive oil. I'm going to start off with 2 cups of soy milk. And as I'm adding it, just stirring away with my spoon. I'm not too worried about it becoming lumpy, just because the coconut flour was really fine. So I'm not worried about it becoming lumpy, but I still want to cook it. I'm just gonna cover it up, and we're gonna check on our gluten-free noodles. So you know when the noodles are done, when they have a little bit of a bite, when you're testing, when you're like trying one to see if it's done or not. Okay, so it's done. The gluten-free noodles, they take less than no time to cook. So I'm gonna turn the heat off, and I'm gonna actually take this off the heat, and then I'm gonna finish our sauce. So because it has a little bit of a bite, I'm just gonna allow the heat from the water to finish cooking the pasta. So I'm not worried about it being overcooked, because it still has just about 5-6 minutes to go. And then from here, I'm also gonna add our cheeses. So this is about 2.5 cups of cheddar and a cup of parm. And if you have like your kids in the kitchen, having them add the cheese to the pot, that's like the perfect job for any child. I know a lot of kids like to cook with their parents or their moms. So from here, I'm gonna add a pint of fresh halved cherry tomatoes, just to give the mac and cheese a little bit more freshness. You can also add any form of like vegetable. I like the tomatoes because it just bursts in your mouth when you're eating the mac and cheese, and it's really, really tasty. So I want to use some of the spices that I used with the cornmeal dredge. So I'm going to add 1/2 tablespoon of paprika, 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder, and then 1/2 tablespoon of garlic powder. So what I have here is about 1 pound of asparagus. So we are going to roast the asparagus, just a nice clean cut roast in a 375-degree oven with the catfish. So asparagus grows out of the ground straight up. So towards the end of the actual roots, it's more woody. So people tend to cut this off and even pickle it in order to just save the product and get the most out of it. With this, I cut off the woody part of the asparagus. So from here, I actually want to take it in bundles and like cut it on the bias. And then put it on a sheet tray. So I'm gonna actually put a little bit of light olive oil on the asparagus so it can get a nice even roast. And I'm also going to put salt and pepper on it as well. So we have some salt. When you're seasoning anything, season it season it at a high point so that it can evenly spread on the product. And then I want some freshly ground pepper. Roll it with my hands so it's like all evenly seasoned. And it's gonna go right in the oven with the catfish at 375 degrees. So I'm just gonna fill it, and if it's firm to the touch, then more than likely it's done. But if you're one of those cooks that don't really trust yourself, then it's okay to just split it just a little bit and take a peek inside. So from here, just by filling it, I'm just gonna let it go another 5 minutes. Asparagus is looking really, really good. It's nice and bright green. That's a good indication that it is done. Pull out the asparagus. So while the asparagus is cooling, we're just going to finish our mac and cheese. So at this point, I have drained the macaroni and I have drained the cooked noodles, but I reserved about a cup of their pasta water just because it will help like kind of smooth out the sauce, because the sauce is nice and thick, cheesy. That's a good indication that it's gonna be really good because it's nice and cheesy. So I'm just gonna add this to the pot. So with the macaroni and cheese, I noticed that just by putting that small amount of cheese in there, it was a little bit loose. So I added about 3 to 4 more cups of cheese. It's okay, cheese is always a good thing. So I added 3 to 4 more cups of cheese. And now it's nice and thick and cheesy. Y'all hear that? That's good macaroni and cheese. So I like to add a little bit of freshness to the plate. So I wanted to add a little bit of chopped parsley on top. So I have some parsley leaves, and I'm using flat leaf parsley. You can also use curly parsley as well. Doesn't have to be too chopped up, because I want to be able to taste a little bit of that freshness at the end. So that's about as far as I'm going to take this. You can chop it even finer, and then from here we're just going to plate everything up. So I have my plate. I'm going to take some of the macaroni and cheese and put it at the bottom. And then I'm just going to take a few stalks of asparagus and put it right on top. We're just going to top it with one of our pieces of oven fried catfish. And then add a little bit of parsley on top. Clean up the plate a little bit. And there you have it, our oven fried catfish with our gluten-free macaroni and cheese and roasted asparagus.